Standing in front of the glass door of the Star Technology building, Yanting looked up at the high-sounding building. His heart was both excited and tight. Today is his first day of employment, and this top-notch technology company is the place that many graduates dream of. But he also knew that entering this door meant facing a completely unfamiliar battleground, the job site. "Hey, newcomer, are you fucking me in a daze? Don't you go in and wait for it to be removed?" A slightly mocking voice came from the side. When Yanting turned around, he saw a man in a well-dressed body, with a smile on his face, and a work card on his chest with a Wiccan. Yanting instinctively felt that this person was not simple, but he still looked down on his face and pushed the door and walked in. Everyone came to the hall, and everyone wrote busy and leave on their faces. After taking the job information, Yanting found the Human Resources Department and reported it. He was taken to the office area of the market. His workstation was in the corner, surrounded by miscellaneous objects, looking like a forgotten edge belt. Several colleagues glanced at him, then lowered their heads and continued to knock on the keyboard, and no one took the initiative to say hello. "Is this the job market? It's really cold." Yanting muttered in a low voice, sat down to sort out the things. At this moment, a cold mechanical sound suddenly ejaculated in the sea of brain. The field direct system is activated, and the environment scan. The surrounding enemy index was detected, medium to high, and users are advised to be vigilant. Yanting was stunned. Is this the job intuitive system he unexpectedly obtained? Hearing that this thing can help him judge his colleagues' movements and career rules, it is simply a life-saving tool for newcomers. He calmed down and began to observe the surrounding area. Sure enough, several colleagues were talking about something in a short voice, and occasionally threw unfriendly eyes at him. "I'm new. I'm a good student who has no background. I guess it won't take long." A man wearing a glass said in a low voice, and several people next to him laughed lightly. Yanting didn't hear the appearance on the surface, and he sneered in his heart. The system prompts: when the group's arrangement behavior was detected, it is recommended that users take the initiative to strike and break the partition, otherwise it will be erected. He took a deep breath, stood up and walked to the few colleagues, and said with a smile, "Hello, everyone, I am Yanting. I'm just a job. If you have any questions, please give me some advice." The few people were stunned for a moment, but they didn't expect that he would take the initiative to come. The eyeglasses were a little bit stronger. "Oh, newbie, okay, let's talk about it if you have something to do." His lingering was full of impatientness. Yanting didn't care and continued to smile. "I came here just now and didn't know anything. Why don't I ask everyone for a cup of coffee at noon? Are you going to know?" The system prompts: take goodwill to lower the enemy index, and the enemy has dropped to a moderate and low level. Sure enough, this move has made several colleagues' attitudes a little calmer. Although there is still no enthusiasm, at least I am no longer sarcastic. During the lunch break, Yanting really went to the floor-shaved coffee shop to buy a few cups of iron and gave it to those colleagues. Just when he thought he could get a little closer, the system suddenly warned: "I detected a potential crisis. Source of the enemy, the left front of the station area. It is recommended that the user respond immediately." Yanting raised his head and found that Wei Chen was standing far away, holding his arms and looking at him coldly. 1. Newcomers are quite good at being a human being. Are you going to invite customers just now? Wei Chen left. His language was full of teasing, but I save you some energy. This is not a place where you can stand firm with just a few cups of coffee. Yanting felt nervous, and the system prompted: Wei Chen, a senior employee, job impact assessment, high, potential threat, extremely high. It is recommended to avoid head-on conflicts and find allies. He smiled and put on a harmless look. Brother Wei said it right. I just want to be familiar with everyone. It's no different. Wei Chen hummed and said nothing, but the slight contempt in his eyes was easy to see. When Yanting returned to the workstation, he was secretly alert. This guy was definitely not a good guy. After the afternoon work began, Yanting was assigned a lot of basic tasks to organize data and print errands, and was busy and sweating profusely. The colleagues around him were still watching coldly, and some even deliberately gave him the wrong information, making him work in vain for a long time. Yanting didn't look sarcastic on the surface, but the system has prompted several times. I have detected deliberate and difficult behavior. It is recommended that users respond and show their abilities, otherwise they will be considered weak and bullied. The opportunity will come soon. As he got off work, the eyeglasses suddenly came with a document and said in a bad manner, "Yanting, this report must be submitted tonight. The data is a bit chaotic, you can get it." After saying that, he dropped the document and left. Several colleagues next to him laughed secretly, obviously wanting to see him get out of trouble. When Yanting looked down, he found that the data in the documents were indeed a mess. Normal people had to work overtime until midnight before they could sort them out. He was about to bury his head and fuck him, but the system suddenly reminded, the data error was detected. It is recommended that the user check the original record. The chance of counterattack has appeared. Yanting's eyes lit up and he quickly took out the previous electronic file. Sure enough, he found that this report was not the scope he was responsible for, but the gun that was deliberately dropped by the lens man. He didn't say anything, but quickly sorted out the data, and even tagged out a few obvious errors, then printed them out, walked to the eyebrow man, and smiled and said, "I've sorted out the report, but there are a few data here that don't seem to be right. I've tagged it out for you. Can you see if there is any error in the original record?" The man with a glance was stunned. After taking the report, he looked at the face and his face became difficult to look. Several colleagues from the side also came over and found that Ting not only completed the task, but also pointed out the mistakes accurately, showing a shocked expression. The eyeglasses coughed in embarrassment. Maybe there is a problem in the recording, I'll check it again." Yanting smiled without saying a word, and the system prompted, the counterattack was successful, the enemy index was reduced to a low level, and the favorability of colleagues increased slightly. This wave of operations not only resolved the tricks, but also made people around him look at him with admiration. It was impossible for a newcomer to get started so quickly and catch other people's little seeds. After get off work, Yanting packed up his things and was about to leave. A short-haired girl left and said with a smile, "Hey, newbie, she's just pretty." The old man in her eyes is famous for loving shook her head. "You gave him a class directly." Yanting looked up and saw the girl's handcard card on her chest writing Pei Ling, which looked quite lively. "I've won the prize, I'm just a blind cat and a dead mouse." Yanting smiled implicitly. "Don't worry, my name is Peeling, the market's information center. If you don't understand anything, you can ask me." Peeling blinked and said in a low voice, "But I have to remind you that it's nothing to offend Lao Lu today, but you have to be careful of Wei Chen. That guy is not easy to mess with." When Yanting moved, the system prompted, "Pei Ling, the potential of allies in the field, high. It is recommended to build trust relations and obtain information." He clicked the head and tried to ask, "Wei Chen? What is he from? I feel very threatening." Pei Ling smiled and pulled him to the elevator entrance. She said in a short voice, "Wei Chen, the little bully in the market, is old and has a strong relationship. She heard that she is very close to the leaders above. He has long been eyeing the promotional title in the department. Whoever dares to snatch him from the bottom of the game will definitely be fruitless. You come just now, it's best not to hit him in the gun." As he heard this, he silently remembered these stories in his heart, and said with a smile, "Thank you so much, I will be careful. By the way, Pei Ling, you have such a spiritual message. I would like to ask you to have a meal if you have time." "Okay, let's make a decision." Pei Ling answered readily. As soon as the elevator door opened, she snatched her hand and left. Looking at her back, the system in the brain reminded, the initial ally relationship has been established, the information channel has been opened. It is recommended that users continue to deepen their connections. He curled his lips. Although it was not small on the first day of work today, although the pressure was not small, he stood firm and met a potential ally. Walking out of the company building, the night has fallen, and the city lights shine on the face of Yanting. He took a deep breath and murmured, "Star Technology, this game has just begun." When Yanting walked into the building of Star Technology the next day, he no longer felt as nervous as he had just arrived. Yesterday's little runner gave him a little more confidence. Although he was just an inconspicuous newcomer, he at least proved that he was not a soft persimmon that could be controlled by others. He sat in the workstation, opened his computer, and began to deal with some broken tasks that he had not completed yesterday. The system's prompt sounds in the brain from time to time. In the environment scan, the surrounding enemy index, low. It is recommended that users keep low to find opportunities for breakthroughs. He glanced at the office area. The old man Lou, who was eyeglasses, was clearly at ease today. Although he still didn't take the initiative to chat, at least he didn't get any messy cooks. Other colleagues would occasionally signal to him. Yanting knew that this was the initial respect from the previous wave of operations yesterday. However, Wei Chen's workstation was empty and said that he was called to open the meeting early in the morning, which made Yanting feel a little unfavorable. "Hey, yes, it's morning." Pei Ling's voice came from the side. She held a cup of milk tea and leaned over with a smile. "Did you sleep well yesterday? I didn't get scared to go to work on the first day, so you have any?" Yanting smiled and took a small piece of puff paste from her. "It's okay, it's just a little tired." "What about you? The news is clear. Did you have any new gossip last night?" Pei Ling's eyes lit up and she said in a low voice, "Yes, it's still a big news." "Do you know why Wei Chen was called to open early in the morning?" "I heard that it was because the key projects for the next quarter were set, and the market department had to promote several people to the core group. Wei Chen's guy had already started the event. Yesterday, he had a private dinner with a few veterans. It was probably because he was canvassing votes." When Yanting was moved, the system prompted, the key information was detected. The number of project teams is a job breakthrough opportunity. It is recommended that users pay close attention to find the entry point. He asked casually, "How do you usually choose people for this project team? What is the qualification or ability?" Pei Ling curled her lips. "The name depends on ability, of course, but in reality, people and relationships are more important. People like Wei Chen say that they are chaotic and have no shortage of tricks under their hands. If you want to go in, you have to be more careful and don't be cheated by him." After clicking the head, he began to count in his heart. The system's prompts followed. It is recommended that users deepen their relationship with Pei Ling, obtain more internal information, and at the same time improve personal performance and compete for their boss attention. He smiled and said to Pei Ling, "Thank you for reminding me. I don't know anything, and I have to rely on you to make more suggestions in the future." "Yes, do you have time at noon? Have a meal together and talk about the company's affairs?" "Okay, see you in the cafeteria." Pei Ling answered readily and turned back to her workstation. The work in the morning was still broken, and Yanting buried his head in processing documents. Occasionally, he heard the project group and number allocation of colleagues around him. He was not vocal on the surface, but the system has begun to analyze. The potential injustice in the assignment of tasks was detected. The coverage of Wei Chen's influence is 70% of the market. It is recommended that users prepare in advance, so it should be subject to possible crisis. Sure enough, near noon, Zhang Jia, the manager of the market department, sent an email to all members, announcing that the key projects will be officially launched in the next quarter. The number of core groups will be defined in the near future. At the same time, each employee has been assigned a preliminary task for preliminary assessment. When Yanting opened the attachment, he found that his task was to organize a report on product analysis. It took only 3 days, and the source of information was extremely limited, which was quite difficult. "This task, how do you feel that you were deliberately messing with me?" Yanting muttered in a low voice, and the system immediately responded, "I detected the task allocation deviation, difficulty index, high, potential operator, Wei Chen. It is recommended that users check the tasks of other colleagues to confirm whether it is correct." He asked several colleagues next to him quietly, and found that most of their tasks were simple data records or meeting records, and the workload and difficulty were far lower than his. At noon, Yanting mentioned this matter to Pei Ling. She glanced at her eyebrows and said in a low voice, "This is definitely Wei Chen's handwriting. He has a good relationship with Sister Zhang." It's normal for him to intervene in such a task. I guess he wants to make you unable to complete the task and be directly wiped out on the first round. Yanting took a bite of the sandwich, calm on the surface, and his heart had already started to move quickly. The system prompts: if you are sure of the crisis, it is recommended that users use limited resources to complete tasks efficiently, and at the same time find opportunities for counterattacks and reverse bad luck. He smiled and said to Pei Ling, "It seems that I have to be extra mild. You have a lot of information to borrow from me to refer to? I really have no clue about the product analysis section." Pei Ling's eyes lit up and she came to the novel and said, "I have some information. It is a product research I have done before. Although it is not the latest, it can save you a lot of effort. But you have to keep it confidential, and I have never shown this for anyone." "Don't worry, I won't say it." Yanting patted his chest to guarantee it. The system prompted: the trust of allies has increased, the information has been successful. It is recommended that users make full use of resources and compete for the best performance. With the information provided by Pei Ling, Yanting immediately devoted himself to the report after returning to the workstation. He found that although the data is not up to date, there are many unique perspectives and analytical frameworks that can just supplement the shortcomings of public information. He worked overtime for 2 nights, combined with the system's data optimization suggestions, and finally completed a detailed and prominent product analysis report on the morning of the 3rd day. When submitting the report, Sister Zhang just simply placed the spot and didn't say much. Yanting was a little nervous, but the system prompted: report completion, high, expected boss satisfaction, medium or high. It is recommended that users keep low and wait for the results. He didn't say anything, but just returned to the station silently and continued to deal with other matters. In the afternoon, all members of the market department were summoned to the meeting room, and Sister Zhang announced the evaluation results of the previous tasks. When she mentioned Yanting's name, her language clearly showed a surprise. This product analysis report is very detailed, especially the prediction part of the product strategy. There are several views that are very new and worthy of showing." There was a small talk in the conference room, and many colleagues came to see shockingly. Yanting smiled implicitly on his face, and felt a little relieved in his heart. The system prompts: the boss's recognition has improved, his job impact has increased slightly, and the crisis has been resolved successfully. He noticed that Wei Chen, who was sitting in the front row, had a bad face. Although he didn't say anything, his eyes were clearly flashing. After the meeting, Pei Ling came over and patted Yanting on the shoulder. "Yes, newcomer. Sister Zhang rarely expresses her. You slapped Wei Chen directly. He thought he would never expect that you, a newcomer, could get such a difficult task." Yanting smiled and slammed: "The weather is so strong, but you still have more information." His voice fell, and the system prompted: the relationship between allies is further strengthened. It is recommended that users continue to maintain contact and expand the network. However, things didn't end there. Before get off work in the afternoon, when Yanting was pouring water in the tea, he heard a few colleagues talking in a short speech. "Did you hear it? That newcomer Yanting, the report was copied, and the information was not found by him. Really, fake? No wonder a newcomer can do so well. It turns out that there is insider." Yanting's heart sank, and the system immediately warned: "I detected unfavorable opinions, source possibility, Wei Chen, influence scope, the small market group. It is recommended that users respond quickly to avoid being slapped in their voices." He did not do it on the spot, but did not hear the work, silently returned to the workstation, and began to calculate the countermeasures in his mind. Not long after, Pei Ling hurried over and said in a low voice, "Yanting, it's not good. Someone is reporting your reports and copying, saying that you have obtained other people's information by contact. Now several small groups are discussing it. I guess it was Wei Chen's kid, and he couldn't help you in his mission, so he started playing." Yanting sneered, and the system prompted: "Xian's crisis is confirmed. It is recommended that users publicly clarify and display certificates. At the same time, they will counter the source of the rumors and stand up to a positive image." He pointed at the head and said to Pei Ling, don't worry, I have a way. Please help me, sort out the source of the information you gave me before, and send it to me. I'm useful. Although Pei Ling didn't quite understand what he wanted to fuck, she still did it. After getting the screenshot, Yanting quickly posted a message in the internal communication group of the department. When I heard some news about the report, I felt it was necessary to clarify it. For my product analysis report, all data and views were sorted and written by myself. Some reference data comes from public channels and selfless help from colleagues. A data screenshot is attached here, so everyone can check it. If you still have any questions, you can ask me for the quality at any time, and those who have cleared it will be clear. As soon as the news came out, the group exploded instantly. Many colleagues began to reply and express their support for Yanting's clarification. Some even directly joked, "Some people are not capable and love to tell me," which is really boring. Although Wei Chen was not talking in the group, Yanting could guess that he would definitely be unhappy. The system prompts, the influence of the words has decreased, the personal reputation has partially recovered, and the response effect is good. However, the crisis has not been completely lifted, and Wei Chen's threat is still high. It is recommended that users be vigilant. Yanting looked at the screen and his mouth slightly raised. Although he did not win this game, at least he did not succeed. After get off work, he walked out of the company building with Pei Ling. She couldn't help but sigh, "You are such a newcomer, really have two tricks." That guy, Wei Chen, probably didn't expect you to react so quickly. But you have to be careful. He is not a fuel-efficient light, so there must be some tricks next. Yanting pointed a little and looked calm. "Don't worry, I'm not easy to bully. If you work in this game, who will laugh to the end?" As the night wind blew, Yanting looked at the city lights far away, and a desire ignited in his heart. The battle of star technology has just begun. When Yanting walked into the office building of Xingchen Technology, there seemed to be an inexplicable sense of tension in the air. Although the clarification of the secret statement in the internal group yesterday made many colleagues change his view of him, the system's prompt sound still echoed in the brain. "I detected the potential enemy, and the source is unknown. It is recommended that users stay alert." He felt that Wei Chen would not stop there, and the next wave would probably only be more violent. Sitting at the workstation, Yanting opened the computer and noticed that the eyes of colleagues around him were a little different. Several people lowered their heads and glanced at him occasionally, with exploration and doubt in their eyes. He didn't see it when he installed it, and buried his head to process the documents on his head, but the warning of the system suddenly increased, the detection of the scattered words, which affected the scope, 80% of the market, and the content involved users and high-level gossip. The threat level, high, it is recommended to be correct immediately. When Yanting's heart sank, what high-level gossip? Before he could think about it carefully, Pei Ling hurriedly walked over, her face not very beautiful. She lowered her voice and slammed into his ears, "Yanting, it's a bad thing. Now the department is spreading it. The last time you reported that you could get Sister Zhang's expression was because you had any special relationship with the high-level team, and even said that you took the internal information you shouldn't have to take privately and acted as your own success." What? Special relationship? Yanting almost laughed out loud, but looking at Pei Ling's serious expression, he immediately realized the seriousness of the matter. The system prompts, the content of the words has been confirmed. Source possibility, Wei Chen, impact effect, the team is isolated. It is recommended that users clarify quickly, otherwise they will lose the trust foundation. He glanced at his eyebrows and asked in a low voice, "Where is this news from? Is there any evidence?" Pei Ling shook her head and said helplessly, "The specific source is not clear, but someone must have deliberately let it go. I heard that Wei Chen was very close to a few people from a small group these 2 days. Yesterday, I heard him telling people in the tea room, some newcomers don't understand the rules and always want to take shortcuts. This is clearly telling you." Yanting sneered, and a fire ignited in his heart. The guy like Wei Chen was really in a state of mind and could not let down his mission, so he started to play this method of the following 3 chi. He was calm on the surface and said to Pei Ling, "Don't be anxious. If you say this, you will be careless. I don't believe what he can do to show. That's what you said, but you also know that the gossip in the job field does not need to be proven at all. As long as it is spread, everyone will preach it. Pei Ling sighed. Now, several colleagues have begun to dismiss you. Even the old Lu doesn't want to talk to you more, probably because she is afraid of being linked. Yanting clicked a little and glanced at the office area. Sure enough, he found that several colleagues who were originally friendly were walking away when they saw him today, and even deliberately avoided eye contact. He knew in his heart that this was the killing force of the verbal words. Once he was labeled there is a problem, it would not be so easy to whitewash it. The system prompts, the team isolation index, high. It is recommended that users find allies to support them. At the same time, they can explore the weak sources of the rumors and conduct counter-reactions. Yanting took a deep breath and turned his head to Pei Ling. You can't wait for this matter. You have a clear message, please listen to me. I have any handles or uncensored things recently. I don't believe he can hide it all the time. Pei Ling's eyes lit up and she pointed, okay, I'll go and touch it. But you have to be careful, don't be caught by him in the opportunity to fight back. After speaking, she turned back to her workstation and began to contact her information network. Yanting worked in ahead, and if it was nothing on the surface, he was just flying in the speed plate. He knew that clarification alone was not enough. He had to take the initiative to expose Wei Chen's traits to completely reveal them in order to reverse the situation. The system also gave suggestions. It is recommended that users use their work performances to compete for their boss support, and collect certificates to avoid being beaten. In the next few days, Yanting clearly felt that the atmosphere in the office became increasingly depressing. His colleagues' attitude towards him changed from indifference to naked remoteness. In several ministry meetings, the suggestions he put forward were directly ignored. Wei Chen looked like he was holding a coupon, and occasionally passed by the looting workstation. He would also give a meaningful sneer. Newcomer, the job is not as simple as you think. Once, Wei Chen stopped deliberately and said this in a low voice. His temperament was full of picky words. Yanting smiled and pointed his head, but his teeth were tightened in his heart. The system prompted, the enemy index, extremely high. Wei Chen's psychological advantages are obvious. It is recommended that users stay calm and wait for the counterattack. Just when Yanting was almost isolated to the extreme, Pei Ling finally brought good news. During the lunch break, she pulled Yanting to the small garden behind the company and said in a low voice, it's been a reward. I heard from an employee that a project that Wei Chen was responsible for last year actually had a big problem. The data fraud was found by the customer, which almost caused the company to lose millions. Later, he forced the pot to someone else and also caused the problem to be under pressure from the relationship. Even Sister Zhang was kept in the dark. Yanting's eyes lit up, and the system prompted, when the key information was detected, Wei Chen's weakness was exposed. It is recommended that the user verify the information, find a certificate, and prepare for counterattack. He hurriedly asked, are there any specific certificates? For example, documents or emails? Pei Ling shook her head, this is not the case. It's actually an internal matter, and the parties involved have been adjusted. However, I heard that the original project information was still in the company's internal network storage library. If you can find it, you should be able to dig out something. But, the internal network storage requires permission, and we employees of this level cannot get in at all. Yanting anaconda, but the system prompt sound quickly came out. It is recommended that users use the job direct visual system to crack the authority barrier and obtain key information. The current cracking difficulty, medium, predicted success rate, 75%. He was moved and asked Pei Ling, if there is a way to enter the internal network file, can you help me point me to the specific path? Pei Ling was stunned for a moment and immediately said, okay, although I don't have permission, I probably know the way. But you have to guarantee that you don't drive me in. The risk is quite high. Don't worry, I'll carry it alone. Yanting patted his chest to guarantee it, immediately returned to the station, and began to try to enter the internal storage library according to the route provided by Pei Ling. The system's assist function was quickly activated. and a prompt popped up on the screen: analyze the firewall, find loopholes, the permissions are being increased at a time. After a few minutes, Yanting actually entered the storage library and found a project file marked sealed. He quickly read it and found out the detailed records of the project last year. The document clearly shows that as the project's responsible person, Yanting submitted a serious data that was seriously inconsistent with the actual situation, and even had several emails from customers, proving that he knew that the data had problems and deliberately kept it aware. What's more interesting is that the final responsibility of the document was changed to another employee who had already left the job. This guy is really stupid. Yanting sneered, quickly saved the screenshot of the keyboard, and then exited the system to avoid leaving traces. The system prompts: the certificate has been successfully obtained. It is recommended that the user save it properly and wait for the appropriate time to open. The predicted counter effect is extremely high. With this certificate, Yanting's heart has a clear idea. However, he also knew that now was not the time to get a brand. He had to find a suitable opportunity to let Wei Chen's rights be exposed to the public in order to completely reverse his disadvantages. The opportunity will come soon. On Friday afternoon, the market held a full member meeting, mainly discussing the final name allocation of the project group for the next quarter. Sister Zhang sat in the main seat, and Wei Chen sat confidently in the front row. Occasionally, she had a low voice with several employees, which seemed to have attracted many supporters. Yanting sat in the back row, with a low surface and a time in his heart. Halfway through the meeting, Zhang Jia mentioned the ranking evaluation criteria and specifically emphasized, the selection depends not only on ability, but also on character and team cooperation spirit. If someone uses improper means or has bad records, he will definitely not be considered. As soon as this happened, Wei Chen's face changed slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. Yanting sneered in his heart, and the system prompted: the counterattack has arrived. It is recommended that the user actively speak, introduce the topic, and make a public verification. He took a deep breath and held his hand and said, Sister Zhang, I have a question I want to ask for advice. Sister Zhang clicked, tell me, Yanting. Yanting stood up, his language was stable but with a slight ray. I heard that teamwork and character are important criteria for evaluation. If someone had ever mistaken in the project and even pushed his responsibility to others, would such behavior affect the evaluation results? As soon as this happened, the conference room calmed down in an instant. Everyone looked at Yanting, and then stared at Wei Chen at the same time. Wei Chen's face clearly stiffened for a moment, but he immediately sneered and said, Yanting, what do you mean? If you say something, don't stumble and beat it. Yanting smiled and said calmly, I didn't know who, I just heard some news and felt that it was necessary to clarify. After all, the market department had a project last year and had a big problem. The fraud of data was discovered by customers, which almost caused a major loss. The responsible person at that time seemed to have not assumed the responsibility, but instead left the bulls to others. I was just curious whether such behavior would affect character evaluation. The atmosphere in the conference room became tight in an instant, and several employees began to talk privately, and Sister Zhang's face became more serious. She looked at Wei Chen and asked in a deep voice, Wei Chen, what did you explain to Yanting? Wei Chen was determined to dress up and hummed, Sister Zhang, this pure and unreliable discussion. The responsibility of the project last year was long clear and it had nothing to do with me. It was not the first time that a newcomer didn't understand rules and said something bad. What Mr. Wang was waiting for was this sentence. He took out a printed data from the folder and sent it to Sister Zhang, saying, Sister Zhang, I am not talking nonsense. This is the item record found in the internal network storage file. It was clearly written on it. As the responsible person at that time, Wei Chen submitted the ineffective data and also admitted the problem during the email contact with the customer, but in the end the responsibility was pushed to someone else. If everyone doesn't believe it, you can go to the internal network to check the original document. Sister Zhang took the information and quickly read it, and her face became increasingly difficult to see. Wei Chen finally couldn't sit still, so he suddenly stood up, pointed at Yanting and said, You are fake. How can you enter the internal storage file? It must be stolen information. Yanting heard the voice and said calmly, Brother Wei, you can't talk nonsense. As a newcomer, how can I steal information? This is something that anyone can find in public archives. If you think I'm fake, you can let the technical department verify it and see if the documents are real. The discussions between colleagues in the conference room were getting bigger and bigger, and many people began to look suspiciously at Wei Chen. Sister Zhang looked at Wei Chen coldly and said in a deep voice, I will investigate this matter clearly. If it is true, you will know the consequences yourself. Let's go. After the meeting, the colleagues kept leaving, but the look of their eyes at Suna changed, from the previous remoteness to awe and even curiosity. Pei Ling came over and couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. Yanting, your hand is so beautiful. She beat Wei Chen so hard that she was speechless. I guess he couldn't turn over this time. Yanting smiled, and the system prompted. The counterattack was successful. Wei Chen's influence dropped to low, the team's isolation index reached 0, and his personal reputation increased significantly. He felt relieved, but he also knew that the matter was not completely over. Although Wei Chen was very fond of money, with his personality, he would never be good at silence. After get-off work, Yanting walked out of the company building and the night wind blew over. He looked at the city lights far away, and a stronger ambition ignited in his heart. In this battle, he finally won a game, but his future path is still long, and more challenges are waiting for him. When Yanting walked into the office building of Xingchen Technology, a subtle atmosphere was filled with the air. After the public reversal at the last meeting, Wei Chen's reputation was devastated, and many colleagues began to look at Yanting with admiration. There were even a few employees who were originally distant from him and took the initiative to greet him. Next to his workstation is no longer a deserted corner, but people pass by and talk about two work matters. Yanting smiled and said with a smile on his face, but he knew in his heart that this was just a temporary calm and quiet moment. The system's prompt sounds echoed in the brain. I detected a potential crisis, and the source of the enemy is unknown. It is recommended that users stay alert. Hey, Yanting, the risks are getting high recently. Pei Ling held a cup of coffee and smiled over, her lingering voice full of hype. Yesterday I heard a few colleagues expressing you in the tea room, saying that you, a newcomer, can force Wei Chen to that position, are simply a tough character. Yanting smiled and took a small bag of snacks she had come to. I just protect myself after the award. But I always think that things will not be so simple. Wei Chen is not a person who will easily recognize. Pei Ling clicked a little and said in a low voice, you guessed it's right. I heard that he has been operating in secret for the past few days, getting very close to the senior employees of several other departments, and probably is helping the group. The promotion position in the next quarter of the market department is about to be decided, and he will definitely not let you go easily. Yanting's heart sank, and the system prompted. When the enemy's opponent's strength was detected, Wei Chen's influence was restored. Threat level, high. It is recommended that users expand the ally network and respond in advance. He was not vocal on the surface, and asked casually, he has helped the sect, what can he do? After all, Sister Zhang has already set her sights on him. Should she not dare to come out clearly, right? Pei Ling curled her lips and said, you underestimate him too much. In this place, there are one set on the surface and another on the back. The best thing for people like Wei Chen is to kill people with a knife. If he doesn't come forward directly, he will let others give you a trick. Even if Sister Zhang wants to take care of you, she will not be able to grasp the handle. I'll keep you more careful and don't be slapped. When the sing is on his head, he starts to count in his heart. He knew that Pei Ling said it was right, and that Wei Chen would never fall down in one defeat. The system's suggestions followed one after another. It is recommended that users take the initiative to attack, investigate Wei Chen's background, find potential weaknesses, and at the same time improve personal performance and compete for promotion. He smiled and said to Pei Ling, thank you very much, remind us to see you at the canteen at noon and talk about any new news. I am a newcomer, but you still have to make more suggestions. Okay, there's no problem. Pei Ling answered readily and turned back to her workstation. The work in the morning was still busy, and Yanting was assigned a new task, responsible for a small project between the market department and the technology department. Although the scale is not large, it involves cross-departmental cooperation, which is an opportunity to show presence. He buried his head in sorting out the data, and the system prompted from time to time, the current task completion degree, good. It is recommended that users borrow to show their abilities and establish cross-district personnel. Yanting knew in his heart that this might be an exam given to him by Sister Zhang. If he had performed well, he might have added points for promotion. However, things were not that smooth. In the afternoon, a contact from the technical department suddenly sent an email saying that the data provided by their department was incorrect and needed to be rechecked by the court, which caused his progress to be directly delayed for 1 day. Yanting was about to work overtime, and the system suddenly warned, abnormal interference was detected, and the source of the data error is possible, human operation, potential operator, Wei Chen. It is recommended that the user check the other party's background and confirm the picture. Yanting asked Naomei, found an excuse to go to the technical department, pretending to discuss data problems, and then heard about the contact person's situation. Sure enough, several colleagues from the technical department privately revealed that the man had a good relationship with Wei Chen and often ate and drank together. It was probably because he was instructed by Wei Chen to deliberately delay Yanting's progress. It's really a silence. Yanting returned to the station and sneered in his heart. The system prompted, if the crisis is confirmed, it is recommended that the user go through the obstacles and directly contact other responsible persons of the technical department, and record the certificates and use countermeasures. He did not say anything, but found another responsible person in the technical department through the internal communication system. After explaining the situation, the other party readily provided the correct data, and also helped speed up the review process. Although this wave of operations resolved the crisis, Yanting knew that this was just a small action by Wei Chen, and the real pressure was still at the back. At noon, he mentioned this to Pei Ling. She glanced at her eyebrows and said in a low voice, "It seems that Wei Chen is so angry that he wants to mess with you. He has been in the company for so many years, and the relationship network is more complicated than you think. Just the market department and the technology department, he has many iron pole allies. If you want to stand firm, just guarding it will not work. You have to take the initiative to dig out his black material and suppress him thoroughly." Yanting pointed out the head, and the system prompted, Alie's suggestions are feasible. Hi. It is recommended that users conduct in-depth investigation of Wei Chen's background, find breakthroughs, and establish advantages. He took a bite and asked in a low voice, "You have a clear message. Do you know that Wei Chen has any obvious handle? For example, if you have a high-level relationship, or other unscrupulous matters." Pei Ling's eyes lit up and she came to the voice, "I heard some voices when it comes to this. Wei Chen, who appears to be close to Sister Zhang, actually, his real backer is Vice President Li, one of the company's vice presidents. He heard that he had handled a gray transaction several years ago. It was unclear what it was, but since then, he has been walking in the company, and Sister Zhang sometimes has to give him some face." When Yanting was moved, the system prompted, when the key information was detected, Wei Chen confirmed the relationship with the high level. The potential transaction trace has appeared. It is recommended that users dig deeper and obtain evidence. He asked casually, "Then are there any specific traces in this matter? You can't just talk nonsense." Pei Ling shook her head. "I don't know the specifics. After all, this incident involves high-level issues. Who dares to say something? But I heard that the transaction back then was related to a project called the Blue Star Plan. The internal data may still be in the company's file library. If you can find it, you may be able to dig out some large materials. But, the permissions of the file library are higher than those of the internal network files, and the risk is quite high." After clicking the head, he began to count in his heart. System prompts, it is recommended that users use the Job Direct system to try to crack the file database permissions. The expected difficulty, high, success rate, 60%. At the same time, it is recommended to maintain cooperation with Pei Ling to reduce the risk of exposure. He smiled and said to Pei Ling, "Thank you very much, I will handle this matter carefully. If you hear any sound again, tell me at any time and we will help each other." "Okay, just make a decision." Pei Ling patted his shoulder and turned around to get the dessert. In the next few days, Yanting continued to focus on the project on his face and secretly began to investigate Wei Chen's background. He first used the systems analysis function to sort out Wei Chen's public information in past projects, and found that he had indeed participated in a project called Blue Star Plan, but the relevant information was almost emptied on the internal network, leaving only some unrelated meeting records. "This guy is so hidden." Yanting muttered in a low voice, and the system prompted, "It is recommended that users try to enter the file library and obtain hidden data. The current cracking progress is in preparation." He knew that this operation risk was extremely high, and once discovered, it might be directly removed, but if you don't take risks, Wei Chen's pressure will only become more and more fierce, and he would not have the chance to turn over. At the same time, Wei Chen's actions became increasingly obvious. An important customer proposal from the market department is about to be submitted, and Mrs. Zhang was originally arranged to participate in it, and was responsible for the reporting of some market research. This was an opportunity to directly exude a sense of presence, but the day before the proposal was submitted, Yanting suddenly received a notice that part of him was temporarily deleted on the grounds that the data was not complete and was directly replaced by a veteran of the Wei Chen group. Wang Ting's heart sank, and the system warned, the test site pressure was detected, the impact scope, job promotion evaluation, operator possibility, Wei Chen, it is recommended that users check the reasons and find opportunities for counterattack. He found a colleague who was responsible for the integration of the proposal and heard it. Sure enough, he learned that Wei Chen was promoting behind the scenes. The reason was that the newcomer's lack of experience may affect the quality of the proposal. What's more, Wei Chen also sent a message in a small group of departments and said hypocritically, "Yanting is a newcomer, so the pressure is too great." This proposal allows colleagues with deep knowledge to take the lead and have the chance to replenish it another day. This is a civilian person on the surface, but in fact it is an exposure opportunity to highlight the stern court with a clear eye. Although many colleagues did not say it explicitly, they discussed it privately, thinking that Ting might still fight against Wei Chen's relationship website. The surface of the decoration is so rude, and the system prompts, while the impact of the job site is declining, it is recommended that users speed up the investigation progress and reverse the disadvantages. When he worked overtime that night, Yanting finally made up his mind and began to try to crack the permissions of the file library while there were few people in the office. The system's assist function quickly started, and various data streams popped up on the screen. Analyze the firewall. Find the backdoor vulnerability. The permissions are being increased at a time. After a few minutes, Yanting's heartbeat accelerated and entered the file library and found a file folder marked Blue Star Plan Confidential. He quickly read and found that this document recorded a cooperation project a few years ago, involving a huge transaction between the company and a large customer. The document clearly mentioned that as the project contact, Wei Chen was responsible for connecting with customers, but in fact, he reached a private agreement with Deputy President Li to transfer part of the funds to an unknown account through false reports, and later created multiple contracts to cover up the truth. What's more important is that the document ends with several email screenshots showing direct communication between Wei Chen and Vice President Li, and the content involves the distribution of interests nakedly. This guy is so terrifying. Yanting sneered, quickly saved the screenshot of the keyboard, and then carefully exited the system to avoid leaving any traces. System prompts, certification is successful, importance evaluation, extremely high, it is recommended that users save properly, formulate countermeasure plans, and predict effect, destroy the impact. With this certificate, Wang Ting's heart has a clear idea. However, he also knew that the open operation of such high-level transactions must be grasped well. Once the operation is incorrect, not only will it not be defeated, but he may also be bitten back. The system prompts, it is recommended that users discuss with allies, develop detailed plans, and improve personal performance and gain more supporters. At noon the next day, Yanting found Pei Ling in the cafeteria and roughly revealed some of the investigation results. Of course, he ignored the specific evidence and only said that he had dug up Wei Chen's uncensored transaction with high level. After hearing this, Pei Ling stared at the boss and said in a low voice, "My God, you really dare to do it. If this incident breaks out, Wei Chen will be done, but you have to be careful. If Vice President Li is involved, the risk is not ordinary." Yanting pointed and said in a low voice, "I know, so I don't plan to get a card now. I want to calm down first and wait for the key moment of raiding the promotion position before I can let this thunder be released. What do you think?" Pei Ling thought about it and said, "This trick is ruthless, but it is feasible. But you have to guarantee that the certificate will be in no way. Don't be caught by Wei Chen. Also, in recent days, you'd better have more people to pull out, and don't let Wei Chen's faction completely isolate you. I'll also help you hear me here to see if there are any other people who can help you." Yanting smiled, and the system prompted, "Alliance support has been improved, the plan feasibility is high. It is recommended that users follow the plan and prevent Wei Chen from further suppressing it." He felt relieved. Although the road was still very long, at least there was a direction of counterattack. However, Wei Chen's actions were faster than he expected. That afternoon, Zhang Jie suddenly announced that the market promotion evaluation will be carried out in advance because the company's high-level hopes to determine the core members of the project group for the next quarter as quickly as possible. At the same time, Ting received a new task, asking him to complete a complicated market forecast report within 3 days. It was so difficult that some veterans were directly stubborn. "This mission is obviously trying to force me to make a mistake," Yanting muttered in a low voice, and the system warned, when the high-strength pressure was detected, the mission difficulty index, extremely high, potential operator, Wei Chen, it is recommended that the user break down the mission, seek assistance, and keep the certification safe. He took a deep breath, decided to focus on the work on his hands first, and secretly prepare for counterattack. In the next few days, Yanting worked overtime almost every day until late at night. The system continuously provided data analysis and optimization suggestions to help him disassemble the difficulties of the report. Pei Ling also used her own network to help contact colleagues from several other departments and provided some key data to promote the progress of Yanting's report. At the same time, Wei Chen's faction began to spread frequently, which was not conducive to the arguments of Yanting, saying that he was not capable enough and relied on ties to gain power. Some colleagues even publicly doubted his work attitude. Ting was not vocal on the surface, but he sneered in his heart. He knew that Wei Chen wanted to completely destroy his reputation before the promotion and evaluation and ensure that he could get a successful title. But Yanting also knew that as long as the evidence was in hand, Wei Chen's small actions were ultimately just a pupil. On Friday night, when Yanting finally completed the market forecast report and submitted it to Sister Zhang, she looked it through and showed a surprise on her face. "Yanting, this report is of high quality, especially the prediction model part, which is very innovative. It seems that you have really put in your efforts." Yanting smiled implicitly, and the system prompted, "The boss's recognition has improved, his job impact has increased slightly, and the current disadvantages have changed." He felt relieved, but he also knew that the real battle was still at the back. Wei Chen's faction is still operating in secret, and the final meeting for promotion evaluation is coming soon, which will be his final dispute with Wei Chen. After get-off work, Yanting walked out of the company building, and the night wind blew over his face. He looked at the city lights far away, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised. The game of the job has reached its most critical moment, and the ace in his hand is ready to make a fatal blow at any time. As Yanting walked into the building of Star Technology, the air seemed to smell like a slight slap. The past few days of fighting on the field have made him physically and mentally exhausted, but at the same time he also realized more clearly that the dispute with Wei Chen had reached the most critical moment. The final meeting for the promotion evaluation will be held this afternoon. This is not only a meeting for the core members of the project group in the next quarter, but also his last chance to have a head-on fight with Wei Chen. He held a fatal evidence about the Blue Star plan in his hand, but it still needs to be carefully considered how to make this blockbuster blow up at a suitable time. Good morning, Yanting, today is a big day. Are you ready? Pei Ling was waiting for him at the elevator in the morning, holding a cup of beans in her hand, a tight and a little excited in her language. She helped Yanting a lot of work in the past few days, and from providing information to supporting other colleagues, she became almost his most reliable ally. Yanting smiled, took the breakfast bun she had come to, and said in a low voice, "I'm almost ready and the certificates have been sorted out. I'll just wait for the afternoon meeting to find a suitable entry point. But I always think that Wei Chen won't sit there, he must have a backup plan. Have you heard any new news?" Pei Ling sniffed her eyebrows and said in a low voice, "You guessed it's right. I heard a little voice last night. Wei Chen has not been idle these days. Not only did he pull some people from the technology and finance department, but he also spread a wave of new words, saying that you privately investigated the company's secrets, tried to get ahead with inappropriate means, and even hinted that you might have contact with competitors. At today's meeting, he estimated that he would cooperate with several veterans and directly pressed Sister Zhang and kick you out of the competition circle." Yanting's heart sank, and the system prompted the sound immediately in the brain. The high-strength enemy was detected, and the scope of the influence of the words, cross-district, threat level, extremely high. It is recommended that users formulate corresponding strategies in advance to ensure that the public effect is maximized. He calmed down on his face and bite. This guy is really in a state of mind. But it doesn't matter. If he wants to play hard, I will stay with him to the end. You help me. Before the meeting today, I will check which colleagues are clearly standing by Wei Chen and which are neutral. I have to do so. No problem, I'm going to cover it. Pei Ling patted her chest, turned around and started her information collection work. Yanting sat down at the workstation and opened the computer. On the surface, he was processing some broken files. In fact, with the help of the system, he repeatedly checked the certificate files in his hand. The screenshots and email records about the Blue Star plan have been compiled into a clear report by him, and each certificate has marked the source and time, ensuring that it is indecisive. System prompts, verification completeness, 100%, open time suggestion, meeting climax stage, predicted strike effect, destroying nature, success rate, 85%. He took a deep breath and secretly told himself in his heart that no matter how Wei Chen took a move, he must be stable today and must never be able to achieve his goal. The morning was unusually slow, and the atmosphere in the office area was also particularly depressing. Yanting noticed that several veterans who were close to Wei Chen always gathered together to discuss in a low voice, and occasionally threw unhappy gazes at him. Wei Chen himself was confident in his face. When he passed by the looting workstation, he even stopped deliberately, and his language was full of choruses. "Ling, you have to express your feelings today. It's hard to get it. If you miss it, you won't be the next time." Yanting raised his head and smiled, his words calm. "Thank you, Brother Wei, I will do whatever I can." He was slapped on the surface, but he sneered in his heart. The system prompted, the enemy index, extremely high. Wei Chen's psychological advantages are obvious. It is recommended that users stay calm and wait for the counterattack. He lowered his head and continued to work, not caring about the dressing, but his fingers clenched the mouse mark unconsciously. At noon in the cafeteria, Pei Ling brought the latest news. She sat opposite Yanting and said in a low voice, "I heard it clearly. There are about 5 or 6 Iron Pole supporters here in Wei Chen, mainly several veterans from the market and technology department. They have already spoken in private groups and are ready to contact each other at the meeting to find it difficult to say that you are not suitable for participating in the core projects, because of lack of team spirit and misbehavior. There are quite a few neutral colleagues, but most of them choose to watch and will not take the initiative to speak to you." Yanting clicked the head, and the system prompted, "The information is updated. It is recommended that users attack neutral parties against each other, and be prepared to attack multiple parties to ensure that a fatal counterattack is." He took a bite of the sandwich and asked in a low voice, "What about Sister Zhang's attitude? Will she be affected by Wei Chen?" Pei Ling snatched her head. Sister Zhang seems easy to talk on the surface, but she actually pays attention to fairness. Last time you revealed the misunderstanding of Wei Chen's project, she has already doubted him. This time, as long as you can show your true feelings, she should stand on the fair side. But you have to be careful. Wei Chen may lead the question to you privately investigating the company's secrets, saying that you violate the regulations and you must speak up by then. Yanting smiled, and his heart was already clear. Don't worry, I'm responsible. At the afternoon meeting, please help me pay attention to the atmosphere in the venue. If there is a neutral colleague who is irritating and sending us a signal in time, I can adjust the strategy. Okay, we cooperate well. Today we must give Wei Chen a big turn. Pei Ling clenched her fists and fulfilled her ambition to fight. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the full meeting of the market was held in the meeting room at the meeting time. Sister Zhang sat in the main seat, her expression as strict as ever, and several responsible officials from the departments next to her also attended the audience. Yanting sat in the middle and back row, with a low surface and always keeping his mind alert. Wei Chen sat in the front row, with a confident smile on his face, and often talked with several employees beside him in a low voice, and it was obvious that everything had been arranged. After the meeting started, Sister Zhang first summarized the recent work situation of the department. Afterwards, she mentioned the core ranking evaluation of the project group in the next quarter. This evaluation is not only about personal abilities, but also about team cooperation and field performance. We will consider everyone's performance in a comprehensive way and select the most suitable person. If a colleague has a different opinion on the evaluation process, it can be put forward now and we will discuss it publicly. As soon as this happened, the atmosphere in the conference room became tight. Yanting noticed that an old employee next to Yanting immediately stepped forward. His temperament was full of righteousness. Sister Zhang, I have a question to say. Regarding Yanting's new colleague, although he is good at abilities, he has heard some news recently saying that he has privately investigated the company's secrets and may even have inappropriate contact with the outside world. Will this behavior affect his evaluation qualifications? As soon as these words were spoken, discussions in the conference room were heard, and many colleagues came to see puzzled. Wei Chen pretended to look at the documents with his head down, and the corner of his mouth slightly raised. Obviously all of this was in his prediction. Yanting sneered in his heart, and the system prompted, the enemy has confirmed the attack. It is recommended that the user respond calmly, first resolve the current crisis, and then seek a countermeasure. He stood up and said calmly, Sister Zhang, colleagues, about this news, I want to make a clarification. As a newcomer, all behaviors are carried out within the company's regulations and there is no illegal operation. If anyone has a specific certificate, please give it a good deal on the spot. Otherwise, this kind of unscrupulous allegation will be unfair to me. Sister Zhang pointed at the head and said in a deep voice, the word of the sage is reasonable. We will not take any proof of the accusation. If there are no other questions, continue to discuss the allocation of the number. However, Wei Chen obviously did not intend to stop there. He stood up, with a slight lingering in his language, Sister Zhang, I'm not talking to Yanting, but I just think that as a newcomer, he may not understand the company's operating model and may be at risk when participating in core projects. What the market needs is stability in group connections, not uncertain factors. I suggest that this time the ranking should still be considered as a senior colleague. Yanting can start from basic work and slowly accumulate experience. This is a civilian on the surface, but actually a naked blow. Several employees who were close to Wei Chen immediately agreed, yes, Wei brother said it makes sense, and newcomers still have to practice more. The core project has a heavy responsibility and you cannot take risks. The atmosphere in the conference room instantly turned to Wei Chen. Yanting clearly felt that some neutral colleagues also began to move, with a look in their eyes. Pei Ling, a voice beside her, reminded, Yanting, the atmosphere is not right now, you have to quickly respond, otherwise they can really kick you out. Yanting pointed a little, and the system prompted, the counterattack has arrived. It is recommended that the user publicly prove it and directly attack Wei Chen's core influence. The expected effect is extremely high. He took a deep breath. Standing up, he brought a ray of light in his language. Sister Zhang, I have something to say. Since Brother Wei mentioned stability and group connection, I would like to ask, as a senior employee, if someone used his duties to make personal gain in past projects, or even harm the interests of the company, is this behavior in line with the spirit of the team? As soon as this happened, the conference room calmed down in an instant. Everyone looked at Wang Ting, and then stared at Wei Chen at the same time. Wei Chen's face changed clearly, but he immediately put on a solid face and said with a sneer, Yanting, what do you mean? If you say it simply, don't bend and beat around, it's not a good habit to make a joke. Wang Ting smiled, took out a printed report from the file folder and sent it to Sister Zhang. His language was calm but full of strength. Sister Zhang, I am not a writer. This is the information found in the company's file library, about the Blue Star plan a few years ago. The document was clearly recorded, and Wei Chen, as the project contactor and customer during the meeting period, we reached a private agreement with high-level organizations to transfer some funds to unknown accounts through false reports, and also created contracts to cover up the truth. There are email screenshots and specific records here, so everyone can check it. If Brother Wei thinks I'm fake, you can let the technical department verify it and see if the documents are real. Sister Zhang took the information and quickly read it, and her face became increasingly difficult to see. The discussions between colleagues in the conference room were getting bigger and bigger, and many people began to look suspiciously at Wei Chen. Wei Chen finally couldn't sit still, so he suddenly stood up, pointed at Yanting and said, You are dirty. How can you get the information in the file library? This must be made. Sister Zhang, don't be cheated by this kid. Wang Ting heard the news and said calmly, Brother Wei, you can't say anything wrong. As a newcomer, how can I do the ability to create data? This is the company's internal storage file, and the right to obtain is fully in compliance. If you have any questions, the technical department can check it at any time, and I am willing to cooperate with the investigation. However, as a client, you shouldn't explain it first. What are the flows of these emails and funds? The atmosphere in the conference room reached a top instant, and several employees who originally supported Wei Chen also began to move. After all, Wang Ting's certificate was too detailed, and even the specific email content was printed out, which was not enough to be a little cunning. Sister Zhang looked at Wei Chen coldly and said in a deep voice, Wei Chen, I will report this matter to a high level and conduct a thorough investigation. If it is true, you will know the consequences yourself. Yanting, the company will also verify the information you provide. If there is any problem, the responsibility will be pursued. Wang Ting pointed a little, and said with a singular voice, Sister Zhang, I understand that everything is handed over to the company for processing. I just hope that the evaluation process can be fair and just. As soon as this was said, many neutral colleagues tried to talk to Wang Ting, and their eyes were full of admiration. Pei Ling said in a short voice next to her, Beautiful. Wei Chen has no idea now. The meeting continued, but Wei Chen's enthusiasm was completely suppressed. Although he tried to explain a few sentences, his apparent lack of basic aura, and even the several iron rod supporters around him stopped talking. Sister Zhang finally announced that the results of the promotion evaluation will be officially announced after the investigation is over, but Mr. Wang's recent work performance has been initially recognized by the department and will be regarded as a key consideration. After the meeting, the colleagues kept leaving, but the look of their eyes at Suna changed, from the previous suspicion and distantness to awe and even appreciation. Several neutral veterans came over and patted his shoulder, Young man, this is okay today. You dare to say and do it. If you have any problems in the future, let's talk to us. Yanting smiled and answered, and his heart relaxed. The system prompted, the response was successful, Wei Chen's influence has dropped to extremely low, the team's recognition has been greatly improved, and the performance has been established. Pei Ling came over and couldn't help but sigh, Yanting, your operation is simply a counterattack of the teaching and book level. Wei Chen really can't get over this time. I guess once the investigation is found, he will be demoted if he is not removed. You are now a new star in the department, so Sister Zhang will definitely have a good impression of you. Wang Ting smiled and said in a low voice, "It's not the end yet. Before the investigation results came out, I had to lower the adjustment. But this time I asked you to help you a lot. I would like to thank you for asking you for a big meal another day." "Okay, remember what you said." Pei Ling blinked and smiled with a smile on her face. After get off work, Yanting walked out of the company building, and the night wind blew over his face. He looked at the city lights far away, and an unprecedented ambition ignited in his heart. In this battle, he finally turned the situation in the end. Wei Chen's threat was almost disintegrated, and he himself grew from an inconspicuous newcomer to an existence that cannot be ignored in his department. But he also knew that this was just the beginning, and the higher power of star technology was waiting for him to challenge. The moment when Yanting walked into the Xingqian Technology Building, his heart was calm and filled with a difficult to suppress. Today is the day when the company's high-level official announced the results of the market promotion evaluation, and it is also the final decision meeting to investigate the inappropriate transactions between Wei Chen and the Blue Star Plan. At the last member meeting, the evidence he publicly revealed had already caused a huge wave within the company. Wei Chen's faction almost collapsed, and Wu Ting himself has gradually become the most popular figure in the department from an inconspicuous newcomer. But he also knew that today's meeting was the real battle. Only by defeating Wei Chen in a final battle can he truly stand firm. "Good morning, Yanting, today is your homestay. How are you ready?" Pei Ling waited for him at the elevator as always, holding a cup of hot coffee in her hand, and a cheerful and a tight smile on her face. During this period, she almost became the definite ally of the court, collecting strategic suggestions from information, which helped him in a lot of fun. Wang Ting took the coffee, smiled, and said in a low voice, "The preparation is almost done, the evidence has been confirmed repeatedly, and the system has also given the best countermeasure plan. No matter what tricks Wei Chen has today, I will not give him a chance to turn over. But you have to help me keep an eye on it. If the atmosphere in the venue changes, send me a signal at any time. Don't worry, we have cooperated so many times, and the tacit understanding has long been full." Pei Ling patted his shoulder, and immediately lowered his voice. "I heard a little voice last night. Although Wei Chen has been low-key for the past few days, he has been contacting Deputy General Li privately. I guess he wants to let the high level come forward to reduce the investigation results. You have to be careful, if he really brings out a big backer, things may change." Wang Ting's heart sank, and the system prompt sound in the brain immediately started. "I detected potential accidents, source possibility, high level, threat level, high. It is recommended that users prepare multiple sets of appropriate solutions to ensure that the public effect is maximized." He was not vocal on the surface, and pointed, "Thank you for your reminder, I have a sense of responsibility. Let's go to the public area first and sort out the details before the meeting." Sitting at the workstation, Yanting opened the computer, on the surface, was processing some broken files, and actually checked the certificate report in his hand again with the help of the system. The document clips, email records, and fund flow directions about the Blue Star Plan have been sorted out by him without any leakage, and even possible doubts are prepared in advance and should be discussed. System prompts, verification completeness, 100%, open time suggestion, conference key stage, predicted hit effect, destroying strength, success rate, 90%. Ing took a deep breath, and secretly told himself that he must be stable today and must not let Wei Chen seize any chance of counterattack. The morning was unusually slow, and the atmosphere in the office area was so stressed that it could almost blow out the water. Wang Ting noticed that Wei Chen was abnormally low-key today and sat in the workstation and rarely communicated with people, but occasionally he exchanged his eyes with several employees, and he was still doing the final slap. Several colleagues who originally supported him are obviously far away today. After all, the evidence issued by Yanting at the last meeting was too shocking, and no one wants to be linked at this sensitive moment. At noon in the cafeteria, Pei Ling brought the latest news. She sat opposite Yanting and said in a low voice, "I just heard that Wei Chen had found Deputy General Manager Li, but I don't know what he had discussed in detail. However, there is good news. Sister Zhang is very confident. She heard that she had submitted the investigation report directly to the president's office and passed the level of Deputy General Manager Lee. She probably didn't want to let this matter be suppressed. As long as you stay calm today, Wei Chen's chance to turn around is almost zero. Yanting clicked the head, and the system prompted, the information is updated, and the possibility of high-level operation is reduced. It is recommended that users maintain the original plan and seize the leadership of the conference. He took a bite and said in a low voice, "It seems that Sister Zhang is still on the fair side. But I still have to be on the safe side. If Wei Chen jumps on the wall quickly, he may directly attack me at the meeting and try to transfer the topic. You help me pay attention to the static situation in the venue, especially the attitude of those neutral colleagues." "Okay, it's all for me. Today I must give Wei Chen a final conclusion." Pei Ling clenched her fists, fulfilling her ambition to fight. At 3 p.m., the decision meeting was held in the company's largest conference room at the time of the decision. This time, not only all the market members participated, but also several high-level leaders, including Sister Zhang and representatives from the president's office, attended the audience, and the atmosphere was particularly heavy. Yanting sat in the middle row, with a low surface and always keeps vigilant in his heart. Wei Chen sat in the front row, smiling hard on his face, but there was a sense of uneasiness in his eyes. Obviously, he knew that today's situation would be very unfavorable to him. After the meeting began, Sister Zhang first summarized the recent overall performance of the market. Afterwards, she mentioned the progress of the promotion evaluation and the Blue Star Plan survey. After the joint verification of the technical department and the internal review team, the relevant information of the Blue Star Plan a few years ago, the information has been confirmed and the evidence involving inappropriate transactions is true. At the same time, we have also conducted source verification of the materials submitted by the court to confirm that the acquisition process complies with the company's regulations and there is no illegal behavior. Below, please refer to the representatives of the internal review team to announce the detailed investigation results. A responsible person from the internal audit team stood up and read the report verbally. Based on the file inventory and fund flow records, there is indeed false reporting and contractual fraud in the Blue Star Plan project, involving a total amount of about 3 million yuan, and the person directly responsible is a market official. Gong Wei Chen. At the same time, email records show that Wei Chen has inappropriate communication with some high-level departments, and the specific responsibility is to be further investigated. However, as far as the current evidence shows, Wei Chen has serious misconduct and rewards in the project. It is recommended that the company discipline it and leave the position. As soon as these words were spoken, discussions in the conference room were heard, and many colleagues looked at Wei Chen with shock and disdain. Wei Chen's face turned into a flash in an instant. He suddenly stood up and tried to explain, "Sister Zhang, leaders, there is a problem with this investigation. These certificates are not sufficient at all. I have never participated in any inappropriate transactions. This is someone who deliberately framed me. As a newcomer, Feng Ting, where can you get these information with the ability to get this information? This is clearly a false creation." Wang Ting sneered in his heart, and the system prompted, "The enemy is confirmed by the counter-reporter. It is recommended that the user respond calmly and directly publicly replenish the evidence to suppress the other party's enthusiasm." He stood up, his temperament was stable but full of strength. "Brother Wei, the investigation results were confirmed by the internal review team and the technical department, and it is not something I can control alone. If you think there is a problem, you can apply for a recheck. The technical department can provide comparisons of the original documents at any time. As for the frame-up you said, how can I, a newcomer, have the ability to create company files? But you, as a senior employee, shouldn't you explain it first? What are the flows of these emails and funds?" The voice of the song of the singular tongue just fell, and the system prompted, "The job site direct system is activated, the precise analysis mode is activated, and the other party's psychological defense line is detected. It is recommended that the user add certificates and make the last hit." He took out another printed report from the file folder and sent it to Sister Zhang, and continued, "Sister Zhang, everyone leader, this is some of the data I have collected and compiled, including the additional communication records between Wei Chen and his customers in the Blue Star Plan project, as well as the specific flow of several suspicious funds. If you still have any questions, I suggest that the Site Connect Technology Department be on site to verify the authenticity of these data. Sister Zhang took the information and quickly flipped it over, and her face became even more intense. She turned to Wei Chen and said in a cold voice, "Wei Chen, what else do you have to explain? These certificates are very detailed, and the technology department has repeatedly confirmed the authenticity of the archive. If you believe it is a frame-up, the company can start a third-party investigation, but before that, you must be temporarily suspended." Wei Chen's face turned from iron green to white. He opened his mouth and tried to say something else, but in the end he sat down powerlessly, his eyes filled with hope. The discussions between colleagues in the conference room were getting bigger and bigger, and many people began to look at Yanting with admiration. After all, a newcomer could come up with such an iron certificate and be able to be right in front of a high-level team, which actually made people look at him with admiration. The system prompts, the response was successful, and Wei Chen's psychological defense line collapsed, and the impact dropped to 0. The team's recognition has been greatly improved, and the performance advantages have been established in a complete and accurate manner. Yanting was not sarcastic on the surface, but he felt a little relaxed in his heart. The battle in this field finally reached the end. Later, Sister Zhang announced the final decision. Based on the results of the investigation, Wei Chen will suspend his duties from now on for further investigation and leave the market department position. The specific points are waiting for the final approval of the high level. At the same time, considering the recent work performance of the market department and the needs of the team, the core membership of the project group will be taken over by Mr. Ting, and will be officially promoted to assistant supervisor of the market department, responsible for the coordination of key projects of the department. As soon as this came out, sporadic sounds came from the conference room, and several neutral colleagues even took the initiative to signal to Yanting, their eyes full of approval. Pei Ling said in a short voice, "Yanting, it's done. You are jumping directly from a newcomer to an assistant supervisor, the name of a new star in the department, and it's a complete achievement." Yanting smiled and said in a low voice, "This is just the beginning, there is still a longer way to go." He knew in his heart that although this promotion made him stand firm, the game of the job was far beyond that. The company's higher-level power struggle is the real challenge. After the meeting, the colleagues dispersed, but many people came over to shake hands with Yanting, and their words were filled with congratulations. "Little boy, it's so bad. It's not long before this big thing happened. What projects will be in the future? Take us." "Yanting, this is a beautiful hand today. The department there are always fewer people in the game, so they are very good." Yanting smiled and said, his heart was extremely clear-headed. Although these respects make people feel comfortable, the relationships in the job site have always been based on interests. Only true allies like Pei Ling can count. Walking out of the meeting room, Pei Ling couldn't help but sigh. "Yanting, you've been going against each other all the way, just like you've opened up. From a newcomer who was being dismissed to the current assistant supervisor, and even the old erections of Wei Chen were stolen by you, I almost didn't know you." Yanting smiled and patted her on the shoulder. "Thank you so much. I have not helped you. I have been cheated by Wei Chen so much that I can't find you. I'll ask you to have a big meal another day, which is a blessing or a thank you. Okay, remember what you said. But don't be too proud. The assistant supervisor is just a starting point, with managers, supervisors, and even high-level big shots. I guess your personality will not be satisfied with small things. Should you aim for a bigger goal next?" Pei Ling blinked, her lingerie full of hype. When Yanting smiled without saying anything, a stronger aspiration aroused in his heart. System prompts, state-level goals have been achieved, personal influence evaluation, department rising stars. It is recommended that users strengthen their position, expand their network, and prepare to challenge higher levels of power. He looked at Pei Ling and pointed, "You said it is right, this is just the first step. Star technology is very deep, and I have to climb up step by step to truly stand at the core of power." Pei Ling clicked a little, and there was a little more seriousness in her eyes. then I have to be close to you, a new star. I may be able to gain some benefits in the future. Our friendship has been finally settled. If you have any waves in the future, let's bear it together. Yanting smiled, stretched out his hand and slapped her, I'm sure. After get off work, Yanting walked out of the company building. The night had already fallen, and the city lights shone on his face, making it particularly dazzling. He stood in front of the building, looked up at the high-pitched glass curtain wall, recalling his nervousness and confusion when he first entered the job, and his lips were slapped on the ground. From a dismissed career-style food bird to a new star in the department, he has experienced too many plots and challenges along the way, but every crisis has made him more impetuous and made him more clear that career-style games rely not only on ability, but also on wisdom and courage. The job-based direct vision system, the next stage goal setting, the company's mid-level power core. Yanting silently said in his heart, and the system prompted the sound immediately. With the goal confirmation, the system will continue to help users analyze the environment, formulate strategies, and predict the challenge difficulty of the next stage. Hi. It is recommended that users start from internal cooperation between the department and gradually expand their influence. Yanting took a deep breath, made a step forward and walked towards the far street. The night wind blew over his face, bringing a hint of joy, but his eyes were unusually calm. At the battle of star technology, he has already stabilized his feet, and in the future, no matter how many waves there are, he will continue to walk fearlessly. From Kaifeng to the strongest man, his transformation has been completed, but his journey will never stop there. At this moment, Yanting's back looked particularly tall in the night, as if indicating that a new career legend was rising quietly.